Good afternoon. I'm Tonya Arnesen, Senior Pastor of Jackson First United Methodist Church, and this is Food for Thought for Saturday, May the 9th. I'd like to share with you the second in this series of modern-day parables. A parable is a story with a point or a moral, and this is written by David Griebner, who is a United Methodist pastor. The book is called The Carpenter and the Unbuilder. Today's story is called Shadowbound. Once upon a time, there was a man who lived in the middle of the desert. Well, that was not quite true. It would be better to say that he was a prisoner of the desert. You see, somehow and sometime in the past, our friend had acquired the habit of following his shadow, and only his shadow. It was a relentless and unbending compass that he obeyed completely and followed without question. Every morning when the sun came up, he began walking in the direction his shadow pointed. As the sun traced its slow descent across the sky, he followed the subtle bending of his shadow. By the end of the day, he had traced a rough oval and was nearly back to where he had started in the morning. While his course varied a little with the seasons of the year and the speed with which he walked, it wasn't much, and it was never enough to allow him to leave the desert. This had been going on for as long as he could remember. It was familiar and comfortable, the only way he knew. Yet he also had to admit that it often left him feeling trapped and alone. Sometimes he wondered what it would be like to face the sun instead of always running his back to it and walking the other way. And he longed to see if there might not be more to the world than the desert, but he never seemed to have enough resolve to do anything different. Then one morning, while it was still dark, as he was preparing to set out again, he heard a sound. It was a voice. At least, it was more like a voice than anything else. It commanded, "Stop it." That's all. Just stop it. Stop it? He didn't know how he knew, but he knew without a doubt that what was meant by this was his following his shadow. Stop it. Could it be that simple? What a lovely thought. Then again, it was a fearful thought as well. Certainly there was joy and hope in what the voice suggested, but there was also uncertainty, even dread, because following his shadow was the only way he knew to get around, such as it was. About that time the sun came up, and with it the powerful tug of his growing shadow. He tried to resist it, but could not. Still, all that day, as he obediently followed his shadow, the memory of the voice and the experience of the morning stayed with him. It stayed with him through the night, too. And while he made no significant changes over the next few days, it was enough just to have some hope. Then one morning, only a moment before the dawn, he suddenly turned his back to the dark western horizon and faced the glow in the east. It was done almost before he realized what he was doing. The freedom to do it happened in a moment, and he recognized in his new freedom the presence again of the voice which lovingly offered what he could not offer himself. The rising sun in front of him was brighter and more wonderful than he imagined anything could ever be. As the sun cut across the sky that day, it was all he could do to stand there and face the light, turning slowly now to keep his shadow in back of him. As the day passed, his shadow became less and less intimidating, and his new freedom more and more familiar, even if it was simply to stand still. The next morning, the voice came again. As before, he could not fully describe what happened, only that the voice brought another gift. This time, the gift was a sense of direction. Slowly, he took a small step forward, fixed his gaze on some distant mountains, and set out. He wasn't sure where he was going, but at least he wasn't still going around in circles, and he certainly didn't feel alone anymore. The end. So oftentimes we get into our routines and walk around in circles, following our shadow. And yet God offers us the possibility of new horizons. I see this pandemic and this time of social distancing where we've had to learn new technology, learn how to stay connected in different ways, where we have learned how to be in relationship with one another. Somehow, God is in this with us. The voice of God is saying, stop it. Let go of your old ways that aren't serving you well anymore, and take a look at the future that I might offer to you. I don't know what it's going to look like, neither do you, but I do know that we're not alone in the journey, that God will guide and direct our path. I hope to see you again tomorrow for worship at 10:30 a.m. You can find us on Facebook or on our website, www.firstumcjackson.org. Until then, be blessed, be well, listen to that voice in your life, and know that you are beloved. Amen.